Enjoy. You can always join us on a parade Saturday morning in Stratfordville.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to our budget meeting. Approval of the agenda. So someone to move in second, Deputy Warden Marks. And Councillor Jacare. Favor? And that's carried. Approval of the minutes. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ketchupah and someone to second. Deputy Warden Marks, all of those that are in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Okay, we have no delegations, so we will move into briefings and reports. So I'll turn this over, Brian, if you could start us off then, please.
Thank you, Madam Warren,
Jennifer. Sorry.
I can.
Thank you.
I'm supposed
Yes.
Sorry.
So it's Jennifer.
Oh, sorry, Jennifer. I thought Brian was up first. Go ahead.
That's
Jennifer.
okay.
Sorry about that.
Good afternoon, Madam Warden, through you to the committee. The committee at the last meeting asked for some further clarification on a few additional items. And today we are going to try and answer those additional questions. One of them is the POA generator. We'll hear some further information on that. Additional information related to costing on deferral or reduction of projects. Further clarification as it relates to the possible use of the growth reserve and to additionally relieve some of the tax burden. Further information related to the IT ticket system and in-house development of that system. Further information regarding reporting to the committee to show the past 3 years and direction. We hope to receive direction today from the budget committee to staff related to the final decisions on these outstanding items, and that will inform the 2022 final budgeting process. Additional information that we've received since the last meeting that we can include today was the mid-November, the CPI was released for Ontario and Canada. Canada is 4.7, but our contracts are based on Ontario. So that means that our contracts are going up to 4.9. And then in all of these instances, we had budgeted a base of 2% already. So we will just be increasing those items by 2.9. And also we have better knowledge now related to our actuals for insurance costs. So that went down a little bit from what we had budgeted. So there's a bit of a savings there to offset some of that. So the items are listed there. The engineering roads maintenance agreement went up 103,000 in 2022. The library leases went up 11,000. The tenant rent increases helped by adjusting some further revenue of 13,000. Insurance renewal cost was lower than we had originally budgeted, so that's now down 63,000. And then we would only need to increase the levy by 37,000, which is a small amount at this time. And then you have the 10-year increases and decreases there for your information as well. On the next slide. The committee had asked us to provide some information related to the options that are being presented by engineering. So in option 1, the additional debt for that, if we were to increase the levy for the 3.2 million in 1 year and build it into the levy ongoing, would be 8.7% in the first year. And then there would be no additional increases after that because it would be built in. We would not expect to have to add additional debt as well to finance that unless there was need in the outlying years because of a fluctuation in what we have in the bank and what we need. The other option there is we could phase that increase over 10 years by increasing it by 1% incrementally each year to the levy, which would help to bridge those years. We would need to add debt for those years when we had to bridge for that strategy. In the option for number 2, we would need 24 million. We would have to add 6.1 in the first year to finance the full cost for 2.4 million in year one, and then build it into the levy going forward. An additional strategy would be to phase it in by adding 0.75 incrementally to each year of the levy over the 10 years. And then we could finance some of those years in between with debt to bridge the high spend years. The third option would have no incremental effect on the 10-year plan, but it would have an effect on the needs of the future capital plans in years 11 and beyond, as there will be less funds to complete the projects deferred into this time frame. We would probably need to have debt in those years in order to fund years 11 to 20. The fourth option affects the current year plan by reducing the existing. In this plan, I have put in here two options for you. So at the last meeting, option 4 was presented, and it contained the most unknowns for the committee because there was some fluctuation in there, and you had asked for some further context and what that meant for the overall levy. The discussion ranged from the full amount being realized to the possibility of a combined variation of roads that realized a smaller deferral amount, or to not use this option as a strategy at all. So if the committee chose to fully implement the option, the amount of the deferred taxes would be similar to option 2. And that amount would be 23 million only as a reduction. So that would be 0.72 incrementally over the 10 years. As a comparator, should the committee choose to implement only some of the savings within this category, the savings then would decrease. And without knowing what that hybrid looked like, I provided for you on the slide an amount that would get you to around approximately 12.5 million of savings. So that's about half of what you would expect to save in that year. And I'm hopeful that this comparator would allow you to understand the differences between the full amount of the choice and maybe half of the choice, and or not at all. So that it would range from 0.72 down to 0 amount. So hopefully that helps with your decision. And finally, for further consideration, is that implementing this option would also further reduce the availability of funds on the base levy for the future. So we would not have what we would levy today, we would not have for the future in order to fully fund those projects that have been deferred into years 11 to 20. So it's kind of eroding the base, but increasing the capital projects in the final years that we need to have the funds. Any questions? I think Ed looks like.
Councillor Ketchupah.
Yes, thank you very much for that explanation. If we go back and look through the table, your 10-year capital plan does incorporate a growth factor into it, right?
Yes.
For assessment and whatever else. So I'm having difficult problems trying to understand the concept that if we choose to scale back the requirements for engineering at this point and defer down the road, that we'll have less funds down the road. Explain on that one for me. I realize it's going to cost, what we don't do today is gonna cost us more tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, and I get that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really hesitant to do anything on the capital side, because I would rather take care of it, do it right, and pay as you go. But I also, if we're growing our assessment base as we grow, and it's fed and built into the capital table as we go, then we are going to have some funds down the road, huh?
Through you, Madam Warden. Yes, we will. However, at this point, if we were to defer increasing the levy in today's dollars,
Alright.
we sort of take our line and then we move it like this.
Yeah.
And every time we lose the first year of the base. So what happens is we can never recoup that first year of the base. So we're kind of deferring our increases further into the future while we're also increasing the need for the future. So if we can keep this level sort of at this area, then we're not going to end up eroding it and then needing to have further tax increases down the line. So that's sort of where the base level, when I talk about the base level, that's what I'm talking about, is today's base, which is what we would then base the next year's levy on. And the next year's, it's sort of you're incrementally increasing as the years go out. So that's how you sort of erode your dollars as well, and end up at the end of the line, you have much higher increases needed in order to meet your needs. We do have the growth reserve, which we can use in the future. And so I do speak to that, I believe on the next slide, or sorry, the one after that. So we can talk about other options for funding in order to sort of cover over that base, or did I answer your question?
No, this is leading to where we are, and I guess what I'm getting at is our principal goal today is to identify what the needs are, the immediate needs going in for the 2022 season. And we know that there are a lot of moving parts and figures coming around which are going to mitigate that tax rate come the spring. We know that there are going to be supplementary assessment rules. I'm already informed of BAM, what's coming along and what's happening there, and it's going to have an effect on the county as well. There are properties out there now that are occupied, not even on the roll, and it's across the county. So that's one. We also know that OSIF through formula funding has, I wouldn't say quite doubled, but I expect the county is going to have an unexpected gain from OSIF this particular year. Now, whether the council chooses to take all of OSIF dollars and underwrite their rate, that's for their decision to make down the road. Right. But now I'm just using those two things as examples of how to underwrite your rate. But our goal today is to identify what the needs are going in, and then probably recommend to council the best strategy on how to get there. So.
Great, I agree.
Okay.
Any comment, Deputy Warden Marks, on this?
If I'm hearing Councillor Ed, we want to lay all our expenses out. How we choose to pay for them is up to the whole council, but we have to identify what our costs are.
Yeah, and I think we need to jump in there and we have to make the recommendation back to council what we feel are the priorities,
strategy,
what we should be doing, and but from a capital point of view, and I really hate to harp on this, but God, I hate to defer this stuff because I know it costs us more down the road.
It does.
Yeah, you can't ignore it. Or
I appreciate it, but I also recognize that the comments that you're getting from the budget questionnaire is telling us that we can't take on anymore. Well, I'm not so sure about that, but we want to be cognizant of big increases to the tax rate, particularly in a pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's why we're having this conversation, because to be honest with you, I don't even know if that'd be something typically we would really focus on. But I think because of COVID and everything, as a council, we really have to look after our residents and our taxpayers. So, if we can find something that's going to help them so that their property taxes are lower, we've really got to consider that. And I think this is a year.
Province has already helped them by deferring the assessment rule.
Well, that's true, but I mean, they look to us too, as well.
Yeah.
Councillor Jiguer, did you have any comments about this?
No, nothing different than what's been said. Thank you. I fully agree.
Okay.
And we are a bit of a catch-22 in terms of trying to decide what we can afford also. So what we need, but also what we can afford. So I appreciate just the stage of this conversation. It's a little tricky, but we're on the right track.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jennifer.
So as mentioned by Councillor Ketchbaugh, we do have other sources of funding that we could use other than the levy. So we do have some knowledge that there could be an increase to the OSIF this year. And then in other years, we have had increases in our federal gas tax, which is now the Canada Build Fund, I believe. And so those things are not built into our budget, and we don't know those because they are unknowns and certainly variable. The growth assessment, we could use that as an offset. Certainly, it has not been identified as something that we would put into the budget. We are collecting it. The growth fund, we believe, is a little bit higher than what we have budgeted, approximately maybe 100,000. So we could add that to the budget this year and use it if we need to. And certainly the assessment growth that we have in there could be variable, higher in some years and lower in others. So that is a little bit of a variable as well. And then some of the other areas that we haven't got a good handle on yet, which are the closed capital projects for 2021. There could be surplus there that we could certainly put towards any of our 2022 projects that we need, or any future projects. And we normally put that aside in a reserve for future projects. Using the growth reserve, this was just set up in 2021, and we had estimated a value of about 29 million after 10 years. As I said, this estimate can be variable. We put a conservative approach in there, I think. The amount of 29 million does not fully fund the first option of 34 million, but may fully fund the ask of 24 million if it's fully realized. And the only option, the only proviso in here is that if we do utilize this fund, we lose some flexibility in being able to answer to emergencies and other significant needs that we have for growth, or if we get the funding opportunity that comes along, that's usually a matching dollars. So we would not have like maybe a reserve to do that with. And so a conservative approach would be maybe to align these funds using the same phased in type approach if we were going to do it in conjunction with a levy. And we just want to make sure that it stays plausible and usable into the future.
Jennifer, what's the impact of not perhaps using the total growth fund, but using a portion of it?
Absolutely, we can do that, whatever is the will of the committee.
That's what I'm getting at. It's a tool, and I appreciate the fact that if you use it all today, you won't have anything for tomorrow. But if you use a portion of it today, together with measured levy increases to get us to where we need to be, then that may be a step toward responsibility for our ratepayers.
Right, yes. I fully agree with that, and a phased-in approach is always a little more palatable as well.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly something that's, not as aggressive as 1% maybe, but maybe something a little lower than that, certainly.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's good. I agree with that too. Councillor Jagir, did you have a comment about this?
No, I was wondering in terms of the unknowns, what's the timing? Do you know of some of them? I thought I saw something maybe that the OSIP had been announced already, or some of the surpluses. What's your timing on those usually?
So the surpluses, if I may,
Go ahead.
I keep forgetting to.
I'm just gonna say something. We're gonna not be as formal with these meetings. That's just my chair style for these types of meetings. So if you folks, we'll keep it cordial and we'll be respectful of each other, respectful, but we'll work together and we won't keep it too formal if that's all right with the rest of the committee.
It's good with me. You
So-
got the gavel to knock us out.
It's just easier when we're trying, these are quite important conversations, and so it makes it a bit easier if we feel a bit freer. So we'll just keep it, not as formal. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. Yes, we do have some information about OSIP. We are supposedly getting it. May I say the number?
Yes.
Yeah, it's approximately $1.1 million extra funding, so that does make a significant difference. We are told that we are to expect it for approximately 5 years, maybe in a variable amount. We don't know if that's the continued amount for the whole amount of time, the 5 years or not. So that certainly can be used. The closed report, the report, we are just in the process of speaking with the departments to determine whether or not they have any closed then identify any surplus. I do think there will be some.
Good.
we'll be looking
Well,
for.
that's good news in itself, just getting that information. Go ahead.
Has there been any indication if that generosity will go down to the lower tiers?
I believe if you were to look on their website, there is a list already posted,
Okay,
and you can determine whether or not your municipality is on that list.
Yeah, I had seen BAM's report yesterday.
Okay,
So I
so-
would assume Central Ogden's is already out there, the minister's already sent a letter saying that, yeah,
I think everybody almost got double.
pretty much, not quite, but pretty much.
so good,
Quite,
Got
and that,
yesterday.
good Christmas.
But again, and it's part of the toolbox, again, that's what I'm getting at, that you might be able to use some of that explosive extra funding to help on this. And keep the rest for that, as you say, that growth reserve, or call it for a rainy day fund, or these unexpected things that come along.
Okay.
Rather than using everything to get us down to an unexpected or unrealistic under 1%. No. No. That's not what I'm after, but I'm trying to avoid a 5 or 6 or 8%.
Yeah.
And I would have to say, I agree with you. Like, I think we're trying to keep it down as low as we can, but not go to the point that we spend every penny we have that in reserve or whatever. We don't want to do that. I don't think that's been the intention of this committee. I know I shouldn't speak for everyone, but from meeting at all the meetings, it appears that way. We're just trying to look for as many efficiencies as we can, just to keep those rates down as low, but also, you know, we understand that we have lots of projects to do in the future, and we don't want to be paying too much for those either. So, and that can happen. Did you have any comments on that, Councillor Jiguer? Okay. All right, so far so good. Who's up next? Brian, are you up next with some information? Oh, sorry, Jeff's here, so we'll go with Jeff's report. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Okay, so at the last committee meeting, there was a request to assess whether we could use Laserfish to act as our IT service management application. So what we did is we took that back. We looked at what criteria we were looking for, the feature set we were looking for in an IT service management, and compared that against what is currently available in Laserfish and what could be developed within Laserfish. So before you is kind of a matrix of what we were looking for, and determined that much of what we are looking for is not available in Laserfish. We would be able to develop much of it, either internally or externally. Internally, we have a long list of Laserfish requests right now. So it would take us some time to get to those. Externally, we pay around $120 per hour for development and support on Laserfish. I would suggest that we stick with the ITSM. The other downside of trying to develop in-house would be that we would continuously need to add these functions to it as new functions come out for ITSM, and we would probably have to engage the vendor to help support some of these things that we would add into it. So.
Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for that. Can you give me a financial figure? What's it gonna cost you or your staff internally to develop what you need based on the platforms you already have versus the $14,000 this year? And is it the 14,000 next year and 14,000 after that? You know what I'm getting at?
I know what you're getting at.
The reason I'm asking is because that's what we use. We use Laserfish and Big. And I assume Paul's probably got things like that going on in Central. So, you know.
What we use, but the IT requests are actually entered into our existing ITSM application that we're currently using here. So as far as the dollar amount goes, we did not actually put these feature sets out to ThinkDocs to quote us. We know that it's $120 an hour. had them do some forms for us, and we're looking at somewhere between 50 and 100 hours to complete the forms. So to build a application such as this, it would be much more than that. The other thing that Laserfish will not do is all the automated functions that we're looking for without some extensive programming. And once we start programming stuff like that into Laserfish, which it's not actually designed to do, then if there are any issues, we still need to engage companies such as this to resolve those issues. So I know that I think maybe what we're referring to at BAM are work orders and things like that, because their service desk requests, all their IT requests actually go into our ITSM application that we currently have right now that's end of life end of December.
Maybe then for my own edification, you can give the committee an example or what is the ITS management service and why do we need it? Like what's the difference between having that or having a call come in, you write it on a ticket and say, I need to go down and see Joe and get his iPad up and running. Why has it got to be electronic? Justify it for me, please, Jeff.
Why does it need to be electronic? So
Yes.
that's a good point. We wouldn't be able to, so if we were writing it down, if we say we're gonna write it down on a piece of paper or something like that, we wouldn't be able to generate any metrics on it automatically unless we take it from the paper copy and input it into something like a BigQuery or something like that to generate reports on. We would not be able to do knowledge-based lookups automatically. We would not be able to have users email requests in or access some sort of portal where they could standardize the request, for instance, for an account request. It would outline exactly what is required. There's no automated functions such as scheduled tasks. If we wanted to have scheduled tasks such as replacement of UPS batteries every 18 months, something like that, we wouldn't be able to do that in a manual process. We currently do not have a function to reset passwords, but for instance, if we did want to reset passwords, this tool would automatically reset those passwords based on some criteria. It would manage resources a little bit better on a piece of paper. We would not be able to look out, for instance, 3-6 months and identify what projects are resources being applied to at that point. Asset management is included in it. So we can actually say the last time this ticket, or this is how many tickets we have to this actual device. And that might lead us to say that device should be replaced or we should just keep band-aiding it. It's like that.
If I may, I'm very much in support of modernization. I think in every other area, whether it's engineering or HR, we are moving to fewer manual processes. I think that was the main findings of the SDR. So I'm in support. We need to leap forward. Even if we were able to retrofit and develop, in-house solutions, that's not leaping forward to me. So I think we have been given some funds for modernization, and I think this is the way to go. So I would be in support of, I appreciate that we went through the exercise of considering that carefully, but I would be in support of moving ahead.
Thank you. Jeff?
So we currently have an ITSM application in use, but it is a piece of freeware that is actually no longer available at the end of this year. So it's not that we're adding something completely new. We're taking an application that is existing, but it's a piece of freeware that has a lot of ads and things like that running on it. So as we know, when you have freeware, it's a bit of a security risk because there are all these ads and things running. So you're saving money by not paying for the actual application. You do not get any support on that application if that application was to go down. So really what we're doing here is not adding a new application, we're upgrading that application. We're gonna make sure that we have full support on it, and we're gonna make sure that it's a secure and upgradable application, because what we're in right now does not provide much of what we're looking for, like better reporting on day-to-day activities versus projects. What I'm trying to understand in our department is how many hours are we spending on day-to-day? How many hours are we spending on project support? And if we're spending X many hours on project support, but we have resources to support the day-to-day, but not the projects, well, then we need to align those items. And we need to make sure that we have resources for the day-to-day and we have resources for the projects. Right now, we're not able to really cleanly differentiate between the two. It's all tucked into our existing ITSM, but we're not able to report on it as cleanly as we would like to be able to do. And we would have to replace it regardless come the new year.
Any further comments, questions?
Well, just that, Dominique, you mentioned that this would be, and I don't know whether the funding for this is coming from. Is it supposedly coming from a modernization funding or, but going forward, this is on the budget for the next 10, 15, 50 years. You know what I'm getting at? So if you can justify the need for it, and it's not just a nice shiny trinket, then I could be convinced. But if you've got existing applications that can do it, then I'm saying, wow, really?
Go ahead.
It sounded to me that we are at risk, and there's a cost if we are at risk. So if we're eliminating that risk,
How are we eliminating, the risk is on the cybersecurity side.
but if we move to a different program, we're reducing risk.
That's correct. So currently we do have a system. That system was no longer supported as of January 1st, 2022. So with it not being supported, that means there's no more updates or anything like that being applied to it. So that is the risk that I was pointing towards, yes. And to your point about whether we have something in-house that will actually, because we don't actually have something in-house. Laserfish will not do everything that we want it to do without a lot of programming and a lot of support, whether that be in-house or externally. Once we start taking an application and trying to make it do something that it's maybe not designed to do, it's going to take a lot more administrative costs and things like that.
Are there any?
And I will also add, if I may, that we are, as council, we have asked staff to do more and more forecasting, planning, and based on data, making, data-driven decisions. So staff have to be equipped with the right tools to do that kind of tracking, be able to do that kind of analysis and plan. And that kind of planning on the IT side is also a form of reducing risk, in my opinion.
And I have to say, I agree with you, Councillor Jiguer. I think this is one case where I have to say, I agree with the report. It's a good report. And I mean, yeah, you've given lots of reasons why we have to do this. So what do the rest of the committee think? Go ahead.
I appreciate this staff suggestion. Maybe, are there other alternatives?
Other alternatives to the application itself, or there are a number of applications out there that perform this function, but they're all under the umbrella of an IT service management application. We are going to look for the best priced one. This is manufactured suggested retail pricing is what we've included in the budget. We are currently evaluating options, and we're going to do everything we can to come in well under what we're looking for, but that was what we use for budgetary numbers.
Okay, and that sounds great. Go ahead.
I'm satisfied.
And do you have any further questions or comments from the committee members? So there is a resolution, Julie, for this particular item. Are you finished with your report, Jeff? Did you have anything else to add?
Nothing further to add.
Would you read it, please?
Be it resolved that the budget committee direct that $14,000 be included in the draft 2022 budget, and that $153,295 be included in the 10-year plan to support and maintain the IT service management solution within the ITS budget.
Okay, so someone to move and someone to second?
I'll move that.
Counselor Jiguer and Deputy Warden Marks, all in favor? And that's carried.
You can ask if I was opposed.
Are you opposed?
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
But it still carries.
but it still carries.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I'm not convinced.
Okay, so the next item up, I think it is Brian's turn. Sorry, Brian, I've called you up twice already and it wasn't your turn, so I apologize for that.
Thank you, Madam Warden. All right, so coming out of our last discussion, staff presents before you a summary of discussions had and passed, as well as key decisions that the committee will need to provide direction on as we move forward. So starting with planning. Again, just a recap of the asks and with budget withdrawal values based on budget direction as provided. Moving on to economic development, again, just a recap of the various asks and withdrawals and the direction as provided by the committee at the last meeting. Now, facilities, as requested by the budget committee, you had requested additional information with respect to what staff had previously proposed, a new ask associated with the POA standby generator installation project. Now, what I'm happy to report is that it is not a requirement, standby generator is not a requirement for that facility, seeing as that facility is not identified as an emergency operations center. So existing infrastructure, switch to the next slide, provides further clarification. The existing facility is furnished with the minimum requirements in accordance with the ministry's design guide as it relates to emergency backup power. So there's provision with respect to 30-minute battery backup power, sufficient time for staff to terminate activities and vacate the building as required. But again, just to recap, there's no requirement for a standby generator. And so there is an opportunity to, if the budget committee so wishes, to identify $85,000 in additional savings.
Okay, Brian, under a scenario where the electricity went out and court was recessed or whatever, proceeding was recessed at that point, the building vacated, there is no requirement from the ministry that they would have to set up shop in another location immediately. They can resume once power is restored. So we don't run the risk of having the court assembled in this building, is what I'm getting at.
No, through you, Madam Warden. Court cases would be rescheduled to a later date is based on our discussion with POA staff in terms of what would take place as a result of that circumstance. Yes.
Through you, Madam Warden, to Councillor Ketchba, we also have an arrangement with the courthouse in St. Thomas. Should something happen to the facility where it's short-term court facilities are required back uptown, so that is another alternative.
Thank you.
You know, if we lost electricity, the hydro went out, it probably, you know, if it's just that one building, that's one thing, but if it went out because there was 6 inches of rain or 3 feet of snow, quite likely they're heading off or doing something anyway. So if we can save that kind of money, I'd be real pleased that we do that. Because it still is rare that the hydro goes out.
Well, more to your point, I think what you were trying to suggest that in severe weather events, the odds of something taking place at that building anyway
Yeah.
are rare.
And
If there are safeguards in place, is what I'm hearing from the administrator, that, should something disastrous happen to that building, then there are other avenues, or backups that could be fulfilled already in place. And if it's something disastrous enough to that building, an $85,000 generator ain't gonna fix it.
if they need to stay warm, they can see this building, look out the window.
Well, there is that side, but I would guess what I was getting at is, 30 minutes is enough to evacuate if they've even got somebody, shall we say, secured in one of their facilities, their cell blocks. They surely can find another alternative housing arrangements for them at a time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
In the back of a cruiser is a lot warmer than a cold building.
Councillor Jagger, did you have a comment about this?
Nothing to add. I agree that this could be in the category of nice to have,
Yes.
but perhaps a must.
And I agree 100%, so I think you've heard from all of us that we pretty well agree with what you're saying in your report.
Terrific. Next, we'll move on to transportation. Now, staff has, we've had a lot of discussion with the committee with respect to Fillmore Bridge and Pass. Information has just come to light within the last 24 hours, 48 hours, that indicates that, and as council enacted today, a bridge posting limit. That bridge posting limit now, in discussions with municipality staff, presents a significant operational challenge. To put in perspective, a plow truck with its plow equipment attached but empty in terms of sand salt material weighs about 17 tons. The posted limit for that classified truck is 19 pounds, or is 19 tons, meaning they can only carry 2 tons of sand salt material when normally they can carry upwards of 20.
Clarify for me, I thought it was a level, is it a level 1? So it's 40.
It's a level 3, level 3.
It's a level 3?
Level 3.
Why are you so light?
And that's the classification that that type of truck falls within. Whereas a level 1 is associated with a transport truck.
Okay, all right, so the level 1 refers to the vehicle, not to the bridge weight.
The various levels are associated with vehicle types and their loading capabilities. A municipal plow truck falls within the lightest level. In this case, the posted limit being a maximum of 19 tons.
So a tandem truck. Incredible.
Yeah, it caught us all off guard. And
Somebody needs to do some reclassifying here.
What about agriculture?
so
They're not gonna weigh with their trucks.
They weigh a lot more.
That's what I'm afraid of.
They do.
So the new posting limit certainly will present some challenges for those that may be already using the bridge, but again.
They have it for years, like it's a habit.
I know.
Sand
The
truck.
bridge code recently changed, and so that's what's precipitating, or what's warranting the bridge posting limit to be implemented. So.
Do you have a question, Councillor Ketchba?
Obviously, you're moving on to tell us that by new deck, then it changes the classification of that bridge.
Well, as part of the detailed design review underway, there is some, the bridge girders will need to be strengthened in order to achieve the full highway design loading, above and beyond just the deck replacement now. But more importantly, as previously presented to the budget committee, we had proposed deferring that project to year 11, so outside the 10-year plan. Staff is now saying we need to proceed forward with the project next year because it presents significant operational challenges for the municipality. And so, as detailed here on the slide, Fillmore Bridge remains within the proposed capital program as suggested by staff.
Okay.
So, the 4 options are altered ever so slightly. Option 1 was the original option, all in, for lack of better words, remains at $34 million investment. Option 2, again, focuses in on removal of the town line bridges. In this case, Fillmore Bridge stays in for all remaining options as we go through them. the roundabout at Highway 3, because we haven't yet seen the consultant's recommendation also comes out. And so leaving a proposed investment of $25.8 million. Option 3, which we previously reported some budget savings, but now that we've added film back in, still results in a $1.1 million investment. And then option 4 being deferral of road rehabilitation projects offers a overall budget savings over the next 10 years of $21.5 million. Present before you a map. The committee had requested clarification on where each of the town line bridges are located, and as you can see in the attached map here, all 4 bridges are identified there. As well as highlighted in blue are those road sections identified under option 4, which would undergo holding strategies as opposed to more rigorous rehabilitation methods. And then deferral of urban reconstruction projects are identified in orange. So, option 2, again, as compared to the approved previous 10-year capital plan, we're looking at a plan increase of about $25.8 million. That's inclusive of anticipated inflation over that time period. And again, to recap, the 3 town line bridges and the Highway 3 proposed roundabout is removed. And that's what results of that effort. An important thing to note, which will come back to next year's budget committee, is the impact associated on the transportation master plan. So while we elect to remove these for this budget cycle, you can anticipate to see them again next year. Option 3, as compared to the previous 10-year plan period, results in a slight increase of, as mentioned again, approximately $1.1 million, inclusive of inflation. Again, what we've built upon this one is the deferral of select urban reconstruction projects as shown on the map, totaling $24.7 million, significant value. And also important to note for the committee, deferral of the projects results in additional anticipated inflation of about $6.7 million. So again, the old adage, pay now or pay later. Finally, option 4. Again, building upon the previous options, proposes rehabilitation of various road sections as was identified in blue on the map. Certainly a significant savings there as compared to the previous plan period of $21.5 million. But again, deferring those projects, just the impact with respect to inflation adds an additional $13.5 million in future years. They will come back. So, in summary, the savings is identified previously by the budget committee as detailed there. So planning $10,000 with respect to economic development, a total of $46,500. And at the budget committee's direction, there's an opportunity to save $85,000 from the facilities associated with the POE standby generator project cancellation. And then once again, direction from the budget committee with respect to its preferred alternative associated with transportation is required. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Brian?
No, not really.
Councillor Jacquer,
Here go gray.
do you have any questions?
Perhaps it's a comment. Again, if I apply the need versus want, I still think that option 1 is in fact the need that's been identified, and what the other options appear to show is just almost like different ways of funding and different ways of approaching that need. So I'm wondering, in light of the unknowns that are slowly becoming known around, new information about OSIF, new information about surplus or growth assessment. I'm wondering if at this stage it would be advisable to endorse option number one as the capital need, and then look at the various ways of funding that, as Jennifer alluded to. Perhaps it's time to move that conversation at, a future meeting to those scenarios.
Thank you, Councillor Jiguer. Any other comments from the committee? And I have to say, I agree with you on that one as well. I know I'm the one that's pushed it, but we needed to see that information. You can't guess, you have to literally see it. So, is it a need, is it a want? Like you've proven to us, it is a need, and you've also proven to us what kind of impact it's going to have. So I'm pleased that you've done this, and I'm grateful that you've shown us, because that way we've looked at all the options, right? And it's out there, so. And we certainly could talk more about it with council too. I mean, they can look at those options as well. But with the committee, what do you think, Deputy Warden Marks?
I just kind of thinking out loud, it shows you how, it's always been said a budget's the best guess. But found out this morning that you got a $70,000 or $80,000 problem on Terrace Lodge roof. That wasn't here a week ago, so it's always changing. And then we had turn a page and we get a little bit of good news, we can do this, but it's always juggling. And now that bridge, again, lose another hour's sleep over it. But so the best laid plans can quickly change. So you do need some padding, because, if you need that, you have to have some money in the bank to go and get it. We are really weighing a lot of options. So try to eliminate all the surprises. It's not easy.
Councillor Ketchba, did you have a comment?
Option one still includes the roundabout on number 3 Ford round McNeil. And I understand if you include it in there and you build that nest egg and don't use it, you've freed up some dollars. I get that. And I'm disappointed that we have to go ahead with Fillmore because again, it's a relatively new deck, just blows me away. And then as you're right about the traffic master plan is going to come back and give you some direction on what's going to be required, Jamestown, Fulton, Gillette's. I get that. So what I guess the traffic master plan telling me that you don't know what you're gonna do with these bridges yet, so why would we incorporate some funding into it right now on those bridges? We know we gotta do Fillmore, and if we haven't figured out whether Promise is going to fund the roundabout or not, and that's 4.8 million that would otherwise be in our plan, I'm more inclined to suggest option 2. Option 1's preferable, I get it, I really do. But I'm wondering if option 2's more prudent. That's just my 2 cents. Realizing, of course, we're gonna see you in Richmond.
The only, if I may, Maureen, the only thing, each of these options have interesting implications. In response, with respect to option 2, as Councillor Ketchba noted, and as previously mentioned, the committee, those 3 town line bridges are being assessed as part of the transportation master plan ongoing exercise. They certainly will come back. We have OSIM inspections that have identified rehabilitation and actually replacement for all 3 structures, given their age and condition. If even transferred to the local municipality by the county, staff expects that local municipalities would in turn expect those bridges to either come with some money and or be replaced and rehabilitated, because that's what current reports are indicating to county staff. So there's a cost.
Well, I'm not surprised by that comment, because if I was on the receiving end, that's what I'd want. Absolutely. So yeah, all I'm saying is from a trying to address ratepayer needs, I could live with option 2, and I agree with what has been said. option one is the preferred. I get it. And I'm not in favor of paying more later than what I can pay net today. Your first and lowest cost is your first, well, the lowest and best cost is the first cost.
True. Deputy Warden Marks?
Just throw out there that, when you close down a bridge, we're gonna have to get the public involved. And there could be considerable pushback on one anyway. And, so that's, and it is, you close a bridge, that's, it bothers some people, because if you live there, certainly. So I think we have to expect that. Yeah.
So what's the will and pleasure of this committee? Should we, I mean, we have to take it back to council anyways, and they're certainly gonna be looking at these. I know we're trying to get options that we think are, good options to bring back to the council, but in the, long run, they're gonna be voting on what they think is the right way to approach it, so, are we okay with option one and then let the council decide, or do we wanna say option two and present it to council and they go from there? What's the preferred way you wanna do this? Go ahead.
I can see the benefit of the one, but I kind of siding with Ed on the number two.
And I can live with the number two option, and then, like I say, ultimately, it's up to council, but certainly, I don't have any problem, suggesting that. Go ahead.
The
I'm wondering if it's not too much work for staff, if the committee is really, I mean, we've got it down to two options. Would it be possible then to, when we do the actual financing, to actually do scenarios for both? So we could also, council could compare
Certainly.
what's the impact on the ratepayer?
Yeah, that's a great idea, and I'm quite confident the staff are saying that is something they could do. So that's a great idea. And did you have something further, Deputy Warden Marks?
The bypass, certainly, if the bypass is put in and make a lot of people happy, they get home a couple of minutes earlier every night and stuff, but people are still getting home the way it is.
Right.
Are we talking about the roundabout or what?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's, it's, no one's not getting home because it's not there today. And whether it's, goes in a year and a half, like it'll come, but I'd sure like if someone else is helping pay for it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian. Oh, Jennifer, did you have something?
So what I'm hearing then from the committee is that you'd like a scenario that shows the option 1 and 2.
Yes.
And is it the phased in option that you're looking at over the 10 years?
I believe that's what Councillor Triguer is, she's nodding her head, so I believe that's what we're looking for, is that,
It's on the slide, it would be like a 0.1% increase or a 1% increase or a 0.75% increase then.
We're considering roughly a $6 million investment, right?
Yes,
Phased in over 10 years,
6 million?
isn't it? So the
That was
bridges are
24
2.4
million.
plus, I maybe did the math wrong. How about a 7 million?
Sorry, I thought it was the option 2 you were going for.
Yeah, but the three bridges,
Saves about $9.2 million.
No, between option 1 and option 2.
2.6 and 4.8 for the roundabout.
Yeah, so between option 1 and option 2, it's 9 million,
Yeah,
right? And then the difference in the levy would be from 1% phased in down to 0.75% phased in over the 10 years. So you're saving about 0.25%.
so we would be thinking about going from a 3.6 to a 4.5.
Yeah. My
So the
brain,
original 10-year plan was 3.6.
right.
Yep.
And of course, that's as is today without considerations of your growth fund.
Correct.
Or of,
Yes, I have.
Surplus.
I haven't factored in.
so that we might be able to mitigate 22, but then you gotta consider 23,
Yeah.
some of these things may not be
I
there.
know.
You may have some assessment growth to help,
Mm-hmm.
but that's it. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so,
But on the
Are
other
we-
hand, if you had the roundabout already funded, and decided you're not gonna do it, you've got that funding for other capital.
yeah, that's true too, yeah. So, and some of this stuff's kind of hypothetical, isn't it? Because we're still waiting for those final numbers, so, you know, you don't really know the bottom line on it yet. So, any further comments from the committee about this?
Just a thought out loud, like, we've got four of us here and there's five other council members. I heard one grumble, probably a month ago, not a big grumble, but maybe we're feeling left out and like maybe we, there's nothing worse than a committee going and doing their work, bring it back. And if everyone likes it, fine, but if they don't, then you almost got, should we be feeding them a little more information?
Can't imagine.
Go ahead, Julie.
Anybody grumbling about not participating in the budget committee.
Well, then the comment was, well, what input did we have in on the budget?
Welcome to stay.
Well, I did mention that.
Through you, Madam Warden. I think when council established a budget committee, the point of the budget committee, as included in the terms of reference, is to thoroughly review all of these options in the hope that they'll save work for council as a whole by doing that kind of in the weeds review of the line by line budget. So we do plan on having a dedicated special meeting so that the process changes a bit from last year, where perhaps council did feel a little out of the loop, but this year with a dedicated meeting, council should have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions in a relaxed environment, and a meeting dedicated solely to these deliberations. So I think the committee should rest assured that council has placed a lot of trust in your careful review to save them time in their review of the 2022 budget.
And I was gonna say the same thing, that we're just doing the legwork. What we say is not carved in stone. It always lands back to council, but it's just, we're trying to get some of that legwork done so that when the time comes, they have all that relevant material that we've kind of went through and they can make the decision. And certainly there's ways they can watch this, it's being taped, so they can certainly watch these meetings. They can read the minutes and agendas and those sorts of things. And they can always call us. Any member is willing to talk to any council member about the budget. So is there anything further you want to discuss?
Just watching this right up there with the Leaf game.
So, Julie, do we have a resolution? I hope you picked out all the pieces that we brought up.
I can certainly give it a go.
Okay.
Be it resolved that the budget committee include all investments recommended in the 2020 Corporate Facilities Building Conditions Assessment Report and/or required to accommodate service offerings as mandated by regulatory agencies, and that the committee elect not to proceed with the provincial offenses administration generator, resulting in a potential savings of $85,000 to the 2022 draft budget. And further, that staff be directed to provide follow-up information to the budget committee and by extension county council with respect to funding options associated with transportation options number 1 and 2 as presented in the budget committee's agenda for December 9th, 2021.
Thank you. So someone to move and someone to second? Deputy Warden Marks. And who else? Councillor Jiguer, and all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so is there any other business? Is there?
Not just correspondence coming up, but no other.
Okay, and then I know there's some correspondence, so that's something we have to deal with, so.
Good morning, Warden French. I'll just do a very quick update about the correspondence on your agenda. The Environmental Advisory Committee has been working to investigate the viability of installing a pollinator garden at the County of Elgin, and also utilizing existing county gardens to install native pollinator-friendly plants. So the committee has sent a letter to the Budget Committee to let them know that they are considering this, and has asked that a placeholder or a consideration for $10,000 be included. Further information is being investigated currently through facilities, and will be brought to the Environmental Committee early in January. And then an update will be brought to the Budget Committee with actual costs.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. So, we've all heard this report. Any comments? Councillor Ketchupah, go ahead.
Pollinator gardens are a wonderful thing, and the more remote they are, the better they are, because they attract bees. So, you know, if you're going to put things around a public building, you want to be cognizant of the fact that not everyone gets along well with bees. And as it was put to us this morning, talking about a combined picnic area and pollinator, I'm thinking, are they mutually compatible? I don't believe they are. But having said that, and having, you know, the idea that it's a noble idea. I mean, you look out in front of Long Point building in Tilsonburg, they have, you know, tall grass prairie, which would also double as pollinator. You know, but there are no picnic grounds around it, and it's beside, they call it Vienna Road, Plank Road.
Yep.
I have no problem with the idea of it. I'm just wondering about the placement of these supposed pollinator gardens. I think the concept is great. I don't know. I think they work great out in the field and a meadow. And in terms of pollinator species, I mean, my wife plants butterfly-friendly milkweed. Not traditional milkweed, but the orange and the blues and all that other stuff around the yard. And I'm thinking you can plant a lot of milkweed for $10,000.
Did you have a comment, Deputy Warden?
I agree wholeheartedly. One word I did key on is in remote areas. I would not describe next door as remote.
They're talking about the north end.
Okay, it's not remote either. Wonder if this would be, there's a lot of people out there who probably have some wealth, really passionate about this. I wonder if it would be a challenge maybe to do some fundraisers.
I would like to add to that. I'm supportive of the idea. There's already a tall grass prairie that's been installed there. But it's been all through funding between the conservation authorities and different agencies. So I am aware specifically, I've accessed personally on my own land funding from various agencies to complete this kind of project. So I would not see it as appropriate to put it in the budget. I believe the committee can seek funding.
Julie, did you have a comment? And then it'll be
Okay.
you.
I would suggest you go to Ken.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Getting
Councillor.
queued up
Yeah.
to shoot me down. Okay, and I think Councillor Giguère is absolutely correct. There are other agencies out there that do this. And I'm thinking top of mind, the Alice program with pollinator rows that are put out in there, let alone tree planting and, you know, the tall prairie installations. And this is an organization that's what they do, and they're designed to do this. And, you know, Don, you're right when you suggested other conservation authorities go through these exercises as well. And from an optics and illustrative point of view, yeah, I think it shows a great leadership role for the county if it wanted to do this, but it is somewhat duplication of existing services, and I just can't help but come back to the same observation that I'm not sure it's the best thing to have around a public building.
Okay, Julie?
Through you, Madam Warden, to members of the Budget Committee. So the Budget Committee does not have real authority to, I think you can provide recommendations back to council with respect to the decision as to whether or not to proceed with pollinator gardens and or sources of funding. So I think we'll take this feedback from the budget committee and include it in as correspondence along with the environmental committee's request for council's consideration, and ultimately they'll provide direction, I guess, back to the budget committee. So in hindsight, we kind of did it in the inverse order in order to try to get to finalize numbers for the budget committee, but it should have probably gone to council today for their direction, just so that we didn't have to duplicate the process. So thanks for your feedback, and if that's okay with you, Madam Warden, we'll take it back to council on January 11th.
That's perfect. Okay, so, there's a resolution for that then, Julie? Or is it just a recommendation we wouldn't have to vote on particularly, right? Okay,
Gathered feedback, we'll just,
okay. So, the date of the next meeting, do we know that, Julie? Have we decided on a date yet? Or are we going to be doing another meeting or just taking it to council?
well, through you, Madam Warden, I'm looking at Jen. We were hoping to get sufficient direction today, clear direction, so that the finance team could spend, say, the next 3.5, 4 weeks actually generating the draft budget and incorporating all direction and feedback from the committee for presentation to the budget committee first and then county council at a special budget meeting. So we want to give the committee a chance to preview the draft budget, provide comments and feedback before we take it to council.
It's not anticipated that you're going to be talking rates at that point, it's just needs at that time, right?
It would be my intent to provide preliminary rates, yes.
Well, I suppose we could at that point, because you should have a little more information, start to make recommendations on how we're gonna pay for this.
Yes.
All right then.
Okay, everybody's fine with that then? So
Yeah.
that's good for staff?
Yes, and with your consent, Madam Warden, in the new year, we would just reach out once we kind of know where we're at in terms of how we're progressing on the budget. We'll reach out to budget committee members and try to finalize a date by email or through a doodle poll.
Sure, that sounds great. Is that good with you, Councillor Jiguer? Okay. All right, if there aren't any further comments or anything, I think we've covered everything on the agenda. If you can read the final resolution, please.
Certainly. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 2:15 PM to meet again in early January at a date to be determined
Someone to move.
during the first week of January 2022.
That sounds good. Someone to move? Second? Okay, Councillor Ketchapah and Deputy Warden,
And I move my chair.
all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.